Absorption costing. So when we looked at CVP and other costing like flexible budgets, the total cost figure was made up by variable and fixed cost, and that's used in a situation where we're mass producing large quantities of the same product all the time. Absorption costing is used where we're making a unique product every time. So we're building a road, we're building a ship. In this case, we're going to be making a wedding dress. So every wedding dress is going to be a little bit different. I know we can go and buy something off that's mass produced, but most people don't tend to do that when it comes to wedding dresses. So when I'm trying to work out the cost of the dress, before I can start to even think about how am I going to price the dress, I have to work out my costs. So my costs are going to be the materials that will go into this dress and the production labor that will go into this dress, and maybe I might have to hire special equipment for this, but let's just assume that it's only labor, so what we call direct labor. So these are the workers who actually make the dress, not the supervisors or the managers or secretaries answers phones or whatever. No, these are the people who actually make it. So how much their cost is going to be, and the cost of the actual material, so that is going to go in thread and everything else that's going to go into the dress. The indirect costs are the other costs that we have just to have our shop up and running. So we're going to have to pay mortgages or rent, insurance, and electricity bills and phone bills, all of those kind of things. So every time we make a wedding dress for any of our customers, we need to make sure that some of the indirect costs are associated with this particular dress that's going out the door. So when I'm trying to work out the cost of the dress, I can't just say, well, I'm going to spend this amount of materials and labor on it, and that's the cost of the dress. No, I have to give a share of the cost. I have to what they call absorb some of the costs, of the indirect costs into every job that I'm doing. Now, there's two ways that we could think about absorbing costs. And a lot of it depends on, the nature of the way we actually produce our goods. Is it something that is, let's say, machine intensive or labor intensive? Okay, so we ask ourselves the question first. So if it's machine intensive, what I'll do is I'll share out the total costs to cover the all of these indirect costs. I'll share out all those costs based on the amount of hours that I'll be using machines in the year. Okay, or if it's very labor intensive, then I'll sort out how many hours of labor will I have in the year, and I'll share out the costs based on the labor hours. So the first thing I'll need to do is, before I can start thinking about my direct costs, I need to sort out an absorption costing rate, okay, or the rate for sharing out our costs. So okay, so sorry, I spelled that wrong. Now, what I need to do is have a read in this question. And I can see when I read through it, I know I've got direct costs because I'm going to have 5 meters of material, €20 each, so that's definitely going to be a direct cost. I've got 10 hours at €25 an hour, so that's another direct cost, so that will be included up here with direct costs. But before I can do anything else, I need to sort out what's my absorption rate. So I need to look at my indirect costs. So we're going to be using a sewing machine for 3 hours. There's no cost associated. This is just something we want to be using. So in terms of which absorption cost method am I going to use? Well, I'm using 10 hours of labor and 3 hours of machine. So this here is going to be very labor intensive, not machine intensive. So I'm going to share out my annual costs here. The cost of running our shop is 72,000. I'm going to share that out based on the labor hours that are involved, okay, that we have for the full year, and then I'll talk about the labor hours for this particular job. So my overhead absorption rate is going to be the cost divided by the number of hours involved. So the overhead cost is 72,000. And I'll divide that by the total amount of labour hours that we're going to use in the year. So I'll have a quick read through here. So we have 2 workers who each work 1,800 hours a year. So that means we have a total of 3,600 hours that we're going to have for a year. So that means that the overhead absorption rate is going to be €20 per labour hour. So that means anybody coming in to get a job for us, I know that I'm going to have to charge them for the materials and the production labour involved in their job, but I'm going to have to charge them €20 for every labour hour involved in their job to cover the share of the overall, the fraction of the overall 72,000 that we need to have covered. Because all of the different jobs that come in, we need to make sure that we collect a fraction of 72,000 from all of those jobs to cover our indirect costs for the year. And we're going to do it based on how many hours of labour are going to be involved in that job. So we've worked out, the first thing we always need to do is work out our overhead absorption costing rate, so the overhead rate. Okay, so second thing we need to do now is we need to work out our total cost of the job. Okay, now the job in this case is making a wedding dress. So we're going to use the formula we had above, direct costs. So first of all, under the heading of direct costs, I've got materials. So we have 5 meters of materials multiplied by €20 per meter. So that's €100 we're going to spend on materials. And again, I'm just labeling that. This is not meters, okay, this is euros. So I'll put the euro symbol in front of it. So that's materials. Next we have labour. So we have 10 hours of labour multiplied by €25 per hour. So that means that there's going to be €250 of cost for labour. So what we call prime cost. So prime cost is our direct cost, or overall direct cost is going to be those two numbers added together. So that's €350. So now I need to add to that my indirect costs, okay? So I'm just going to separate these just so we can understand. So indirect costs, I have to give a fraction of the 72,000 to this particular job, okay? Now we use our overhead absorption rate. So we're using our formula, rate multiplied by the hours, okay, that we're absorbing the job based on. Now in this case, the hours we're dealing with are labour hours. So we decided that this was a labour intensive business, so we've decided to share out our, for all of the jobs I'm going to do, we're going to share our costs based on the number of labour hours involved for the full year. So we've already worked out our rate, so our rate was €20. And then we multiply it by the number of labour hours involved in this job. So in this job we're going to spend 10 hours of direct labour on this one. So that means that we're going to have an overall cost of €200. So that €200 is going to be added on to the prime cost to work out our total cost. And again, make sure I label that with the euro symbol. Now, so just go back to repeat how all of this works. We have overheads that we need to make sure we include in every job that we do. So some jobs we're going to charge them 500, some jobs 20, but we're going to be charging every job for the indirect costs of just being able to keep our business up and running, as well as charging them for the materials and labour involved in their job. So we decided to share out all these 72 based on the amount of labour hours we're going to have in the business. So this is a very labour intensive job that we're doing, so we've decided to share a cost out based on the number of labour hours we're going to have for the year. So the total cost for the year is 72,000. Our total amount of labour hours for the year is 3,600. So that means we're going to charge €20 for every labour hour to every job that comes in the door. Okay, so the total cost then of this job is going to be materials and labour plus some of that 20, and we're going to charge them 10 hours for that because there was 10 hours direct labour involved in this job. So that's how we come up with the total cost of this particular wedding dress.